What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Whatever's wrong with you is no little thing.
I just watched that movie. Cool Runnings.
Oh, cool.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a second. What's wrong?
Can you see?
There we are.
There we go.
It's okay. I'll take it out in post. I probably won't remember to take it out in post. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday. It is time for the Mattriarchy, and we have to get to business. We have to get to it really quick because somebody has to make it an early night. And that should be me, but it's not. I should be smart enough for that, but that's okay.
I have to. I was gonna say I have to drive to Florida because I have to graduate.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome! Wow, dude, that's so great.
You should have flown back with.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, if I'd have known this ahead of time, we could have scheduled this when you weren't having to take off.
That's totally fine. No. But
Can
it's
we
funny.
do one of those Microsoft Word graduations for him?
I don't know what that is.
Have you ever seen the videos where they're using Microsoft Word to make a little character appear to march across the screen?
Oh, that's
get
funny.
the diploma, and then they're playing. Yeah.
You have a little paperclip show up. It looks like you're trying to celebrate graduation.
Yeah.
Can I help? No, it's some of what we're talking about. I actually wrote about for a chapter on my dissertation a bit. So I actually did talk a bit about, just a small bit about at least Golden Age Wonder Woman. I've read enough of her across the ages. So I think I've got a pretty good, well-informed opinion, although some people may be more well-read on certain eras. But, I've read Golden, I believe I've read some Silver, some Bronze, Modern, Contemporary, even like I said, I've read, we've all read some Tom King, but I recently also read Absolute Wonder Woman, at least a first story arc or so of that. So I've got I can definitely talk a little Wonder Woman here.
Excellent. Now, one of the things we want to go ahead and talk about, though, is I was joking before we started that this might be an episode of the He-Man Woman Haters Club. But I said that mostly in jest because the fact of the matter is I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that Wonder Woman has the potential, and I think that her history has proven some potential to be one of the great comic book superhero characters.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But things always seem to go wrong. And I know, and that's really the impetus of what I want to talk about. But that's my opinion.
If you consider it, Batman has sometimes, if you count all his underlings who have their own titles, he's got like 20 books that are coming out from DC. And Superman had like an issue a week for a long time, between his 3 or 4 comics. And
they just recently did the week Superman Weekly in Action Comics. They tried it for a 1 story arc that Mark Waid did. So they brought it back recently, and I only know this because my comic book store called me and said, "You could have come here and get your pull list. There's like 9 comics." And I went, "How is that possible? It's only been 1 month since I've been at the comic book store," because they were pumping them out on a weekly basis. And I know what I feel the pain, Hutch, because I'm currently doing the Summer of Superman stuff. So I'm reading Action Comics, Superman, Superman Unlimited, and then Summer of Superman Special. So yeah, just a whole bunch of stories, 1 character, 4 or more writers, all taking him in slightly different directions. In fact, in the Summer of Superman Special, it was 1 storyline. It was written by 3 people, and you could tell whether it was Williamson doing it or Dan Slott. It was just such a different, almost whiplash in some cases. So completely to your point, yes.
Yeah.
Totally off subject.
Poor baby.
wait a minute. I never got to finish my thought because he jumped in. I just wanted to say Wonder Woman has never had more than 1 title out a month. She has never had a team up title, Wonder Woman or something. They've never had a Wonder Woman team up.
Really good point.
Yeah, they've never had anything else except 1 Wonder Woman a month, and I don't think they can always sell that.
What I need to figure out here is how often does that happen in general with female superheroes?
I'm not sure there's enough female superheroes to have an in general.
We
Right,
also would have to.
that
We
is
also
a
have to
problem,
add to that. We
but-
have to add to that number that she may only have one book, but she's also going to appear in like either Justice League or JSA, whatever. So she's going to show up at least twice in a DC lineup, but she's not going to have like, you know, 4 or more, you know, at a single time.
So Jim points out that Wonder Woman did have 2 back in the Golden Age in Sensation Comics, and a Wonder Woman. And Isaac asked a really good question: would you team her up with a male or female? That's interesting. But Flying Saucer says 1 comic a month. Ironically,
Oh gosh,
I would team her up with Guy Gardner to begin with, right off
and
the
there
bat.
there
Wonder
was
Woman, Guy Gardner.
Back
Wow.
at the turn of the century,
Yeah.
the turn of the most recent turn of the century, in the aughts, there was a book that was essentially, for the last part of its run, was a Wonder Woman team up book. It was what was it? Was it DC Comics Presents? I
That
can't
was
remember.
Superman.
It may have been the most recent run of Sensation, actually.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, that because I think they did relaunch. I think it was Sensation that they relaunched for a while. I picked up a couple of issues because it crossed over with Inferior 5, I think. But for a chunk of the last part of a run, it was like a Wonder Woman team up book.
Crossover with Inferior 5.
Yeah.
Really?
I think so. I think that's what I was remembering.
I know Mark Waid's Brave and the Bold did that. Had that.
Yep.
So
okay. It might be the storyline before that one, and that one wasn't. Well, I can't remember right now.
I guess I got to find it. I had never heard of it. So
But
yeah, but I
largely
believe
it doesn't abrogate your point largely, which is that she does. You're right. Your point is that she doesn't get the opportunity to have like 5 different people writing at the same. Like I said, right now I'm reading Superman. There's like 4 or more people writing Superman contemporaneously, even in the same timeline. It's like this story happened a month before that, and you can get very. I've just learned to just enjoy the ride. But I definitely enjoy certain people more than others, and I could definitely tell when Dan Slott was writing Superman in the middle of that story. So
one quick question, totally off topic, and I didn't. Sorry, I nearly interrupted you earlier there. Sorry about that. But
no, it's okay.
Just really quick hit. Don't want to talk about it. Just want your opinion. Just speedball it. Twitless. Dan Slott writing Superman. Is that as awful as I imagine it sounds?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad, but in the story, you could definitely tell because Williamson was like all heart, and Mark Waid was all lore, and Dan Slott was like, "We need to listen to the scientists, people." And those 3 things happen. You could tell Mark Waid has read his comic books because he's working in the deep cuts, and Williamson is all soul, which is just like emotional, like the heart of the situation, and then Dan Slott was just like, climate change, anyone? We got to listen to those scientists. And I was just like rolling my eyes in the back of my head.
Oh my gosh, that sounds miserable. Okay,
that may raise a good point about how hard it is to have more than one title for Wonder Woman. Is that everybody's approach to Wonder Woman is radically different. It's like one person wants her smiling and looking, like just the kind of beaming smile that comes off the page. And the next writer is like, women shouldn't be told to smile. You stop telling women to smile. My Wonder Woman's never going to smile. She's not a beauty queen. She's a warrior, And then the next person
kind of discussed, though, that's often the case with Superman too, and a lot of other characters.
Volume up.
She puts the makeup on for herself.
Might I suggest simply that,
Thank you.
I don't know how many Flash titles or Green Lantern titles are out there. Like, usually the ones getting 8 different comics at the same time.
Yeah.
Can
I think it has to do with the fact that like DC has marketed their I hate to use this, their Trinity idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I hate even saying that out loud. It bothers me so much. Anyway, but they've marketed this idea of their big 3, right? The Batman,
Right.
Wonder Woman, Superman. That's been their marketing for 30 years, right? Maybe more than that. But it's definitely true that somebody is getting the short shrift, and wouldn't you know, it's the woman.
So, This is a very interesting conversation. Already because she's a woman, and because she's not just a woman, she was meant to be. And I would argue it's not even an argument. It's just she is meant to be the premier feminist icon, not just of superheroes, but in general. When they kind of took away her powers and her outfit, the feminists got mad. The cover of, I think it was it might have been the first, it was a very early edition was called Ms. Magazine, put Wonder Woman on the front and demanded that they return her to form. Because it was like, how dare you take away this image of empowerment? So she's a symbol and an icon, and that's partly why I think that she's meant to be part of that trinity, because not just popular characters, but characters who transcend the genre and they symbolize something very, very deeply. Superman, of course, symbolizes a ton, as the first one. Batman, strong symbolism there, and as a man who can kind of do so much with that without any real inbred or powers innate to him. And Wonder Woman, of course, being the woman version of all that. The fascinating thing is the fact that, and I think this circles around what the difficulties that you may be describing, we'll see, is the fact that because she has that ideological point, right? It creates complications for storytelling that you do not have in the same vein with Superman. So, for example, Wonder Woman, like I said, is not just a character in a genre. She means something. She means something so much that if you portray her incorrectly, a whole segment of people who are invested in that symbolism will start breaking the door down. So this changes what you can do with her in a story, right? If you show her losing a fight, for example, it has to be in a certain way, or else you haven't just created a complication for the storytelling. You've created a complication for the ideological standpoint that she represents.
Right.
If she loses a fight, are you saying that men are superior to her? Well, she's supposed to be a character who, when the way Marston intended her before, I think she was crossing over as much with the other characters. She was meant to be like better than all the men on Earth in a way, and the lore of Wonder Woman was exactly that. It was the war between Mars and Aphrodite, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, my men will rule the earth. No, says Aphrodite, my women will conquer through basically kinky dominatrix magic.
Right.
So anyway, to wrap it up, there is the fact that that character in particular, I think more so than any other female character that you can bring up, especially in comics, is loaded with that. And so the creators feel the need to navigate these very treacherous waters, because she needs to exist in a superhero milieu, and she has to interact with other superhero characters. But there are some pretty strong consequences about what people are going to take away or what people feel invested in because of her symbolic nature tied to feminism.
Right.
So that's I think, and again, because feminism is a gender-based ideological standpoint, it means that you're always going to be circling around back to questions of gender. Whereas Superman is more like, he can tackle a whole bunch of other things, and you have a little more freedom to play, I think.
Yeah. So before we get on to the next, because I've got so many questions that I want to kind of lay out here, but I realized we kind of skipped over Cartoonicus. What is your general take on Wonder Woman as a character before we start dissecting a little bit here?
I think I am kind of here tonight to figure that out.
Excellent.
Right. Can I give mine?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I agree a lot with, I think Twitless summarized the problem of writing her. And I think that, and I've said before that I fully intend in a dozen years to be writing a Wonder Woman comic as soon as she's public domain. So I'm in losing weight just so that I live that long. And I think she is a great character who, because she is not used as well as she could be because people put too much meaning into it. And She needs to be just a person, and a person who, tries very hard, can make mistakes, and is going to fail. And it doesn't mean that women fail. You need to free her from that. You almost need to have a story that just says that, and maybe not right out saying it, but makes it clear. Wonder Woman can trip and fall, and it doesn't mean that women are incompetent. There's got to be there is so much baggage that saddles her as a character, and I feel like she could be used so much better.
Well, and that's actually one of the really interesting things that I want to get into, but I'll go ahead and jump in here a little bit. Is because there are two really, really distinctive modes that people try to work with Wonder Woman on, and they seem to not be able to keep their mind on it. Right? One is the very idea of the New 52, right? Played hard under this, but the very young, naive Wonder Woman, right? Now, and even if she's violent and angry, it's still it's a violence and anger built in naivete. There's just so much she doesn't know about the world that she's got to learn, right?
Fish out of water.
Fish out of water.
She was a Thor. She was very much a Thor from like the film kind of character, which is an interesting take.
But at the same time, right? So you've got the characters where it's the very naive, very doe-eyed, or not doe-eyed, just whatever. But there's a naivete to one of those characters, and then you've got the people that write her as this accomplished, a matronly character, right? She's got it figured out. She's the mom you never had, right? And like I think Tom King tried to kind of do both things with it. Sometimes it worked okay.
To do everything
Sometimes
at once.
not. But I think that's one of the interesting aspects of the character too, is that people will kind of bounce between these sort of things, and you definitely see, like, I would take anyway, and maybe you take some issue with this, Twitless, but I think like Wonder Woman as written by Marston was very much in that matronly role, right? The guider, the teacher, the tutor, the naughty librarian, whatever, right?
I was gonna say I don't know. I wouldn't go. She was an interesting mix, right? Because she's got a lot of Golden Age heroes were very much a mix between polar forces, right? And that's what made them kind of very Golden Agey, because there was as much the sort of like I'm a nurturing force as much as there was, boy do I enjoy bullets and bracelets. I love tossing Nazis off the side of this ship. Like there's this sort of like they were having fun.
Yes.
Like Wonder Woman enjoys brawling in her Golden Age appearances. She thinks it is all a game, and that's because she is so above the world of men that she can treat them like the children they are. So she can treat every fight with gunplay and Nazis like it is a game, because she's treating it as such, except for a couple rare exceptions, like the one time where she lets herself get bound and loses her powers, which was sort of a cautionary tale. But like you have that blend, right? So there is this sort of like maternal aspect that Marston is channeling, but there's also, like I said, a very completely the opposite of that, because you don't think that mom is just gonna like roll up her sleeves and just be like, I'm gonna go to the bar in the local den of sin and just start punching guys. But that's just totally right up Wonder Woman's alley. So you got a weird blend. It's a weird mix, and Marston's mix, I think, is partly why the character was so appealing back in the day. It was the fun of Superman, but all the sex appeal of what you couldn't see on women at the time. She's basically she's wearing a swimsuit, and again, this is 1942. Right. And so like no wonder Marston thought he could beat Superman. He had all the superhero action, but he could dress it up in a sexy lady package.
Yep.
And
that's one of the things.
Yeah.
well, that's one of the things that I really want to get at too, is because like you have Gloria Steinem and Ms. Magazine and everything else putting their feminist flag on Wonder Woman, and Marsden certainly believed that he was a feminist, if you hear the things he said. But the things he wrote, it was just like Wicca, where it has the language of female empowerment, but the entire underlying premise can only be that women become available to the men who happen to be there. It was the reallocation of the feminine to the wormy guys that are around.
It is certainly what I would call a type of feminism. And that's,
I mean, there's definitely those feminist men that you should be aware of, but Marsden was one of those.
Probably no. I'm probably. But he's and obviously I'm saying feminist very loosely because like obviously we're talking I think my actual feminist professor would say actually before the 60s you'd have to call him a proto-feminist at the very least. And Jim Tooner has a good point, which is in a way he was a bit of a female supremacist. But I do want to actually dial back a little on that because I think that reading the works themselves, it's important to note a couple of things. Although Wonder Woman would constantly kind of push that somewhat female supremacist line, like, oh, we're all just superior to men, there was also a great deal of respect for men in the comic. It is actually, Wonder Woman was one of the more overtly patriotic books of the time, even more so than Superman. In some cases, like Wonder Woman worked for the U.S. military.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Steve Rogers did. Superman, like, kind of dodges like being in the military. And there's a good reason for that. Not because of a lack of desire for there to be superheroes there, but this is in the middle of a war. And there's a lot of cognizance at the time, which is very interesting because sometimes people read Golden Age books and they think there's a lack of thought put into them. And that may be true to a certain extent, but there was a lot of thought in some other places. And one of the thoughts that was going around at the time is that they didn't want to show superheroes solving all the problems that soldiers actually had to solve. They wanted to avoid that because in theory, they're like, well, Superman could probably just end the war tomorrow. He would do that in the comics in fake conflicts, but to have him solve World War II would ring hollow, and it wouldn't ring true to what actual soldiers were going through. And in some ways, there was a fear that I think it might rob the soldiers of what they were actually doing. And so there's this need to balance the escapist adventure with what's actually going on. And so Wonder Woman kind of threads that needle by mostly fighting Nazi invasions that never happened on U.S. shores. So she's not actually fighting in, the superheroes tended to avoid actual real battles. So at least at the time, so that makes it kind of interesting to think about. But there's a lot of male respect in Golden Age Wonder Woman. They're constantly kind of, celebrating, like Steve Trevor's heroic contributions to the war effort. Wonder Woman, like I said, in her support capacity as Diana Prince, is helping the war effort. She, like I said, works for the military. She does work for, I'm trying to remember, is it the military intelligence, essentially?
Yeah, OSS.
Yeah. So, as much as there is a lot of those comments in those stories about her, like, oh, I'm tougher than any man, there's like a whole hell of a lot of hoorah for the boys who are sacrificing their lives. So the book also strikes a very interesting balance between those two poles, which I think also, again, made it very appealing. If the book had just said, wow, boys, you stink, girls rule, it wouldn't have done what Marston wanted it to do. The boys would have thrown it away. He had to strike this little balance of, yeah, she's kind of the dommy mommy, and she's tougher than you, but you're still really cool as a soldier doing your job, and she totally respects you for that.
And one of the things too is there are also things that Diana Prince and Wonder Woman couldn't do, right? Because there was a limited level of legal authority, and she wouldn't overstep that, right? It wasn't like she was like, taking every, every one of the Nazi sympathizers or the Nazi males away to Paradise Island to have them reprogrammed. It's just the ones that fit into their their girls club sort of a thing with what was her name? Paula von Gunther.
Gunther, yeah. She takes the sub captain. She does take a guy. So like she did try to like rehabilitate villains more often than other Golden Age heroes did, which was cool. No, but it's just like I said, Wonder Woman was very interesting. Just to tie the point home without going on a further tangent, is that you have what you tend to see, I think, is you see a lot of poles pulling at from opposite directions. If she had just been a man-hating feminist, like I said, I don't think she would have made it as far as she did.
Well, and then also she had people like to point fun at this too, but in the Justice Society, she was brought in as an official member to be secretary. But I really think that has more. I maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like that has more to do with her being overpowered over the other JSA members than it has to do with her being keeping her in reserve as opposed to I mean, no, like, than leaving a chance for Dr. Midnight not to be in the book.
There may have been, like I said, if Mort Weisinger had anything to do with it, there may have been some genuine misogyny here coming in. From what at some point, yeah, sometimes you had someone who was just like, make her secretary. So that stuff like did happen.
Yeah. So we have in the Golden Age, there's Sensation, there's Wonder Woman. She of course was a semi-regular, at least window dressing there in Justice Society. But then we have this sort of decline in Wonder Woman, right? And we get into these always being published, but we get into the 50s and the 60s, and things just get kind of silly, right? There was like lightning in a bottle when Marston was writing it, sort of in some ways. But then people aren't being able to carry that spirit on, right? And what do you think it was that kind of caused that pro woman, but also somewhat pro at least the heroes attitude of Wonder Woman? What kept that like magic sauce from continuing?
So we're talking about the 70s, because I just read Superman versus Wonder Woman, which I think 1977.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking back in like the 60s. They were just they were still making it, but they weren't capturing the audience in a lot of the same way they were, right? The Wonder Woman title was not moving, even back then, and that's why there were so many gimmicks, right? There was and limitations in printing. So
this is where I might need Hutch to help fill in some of the gaps in my knowledge.
Darn it, he had to step away.
I'm here. I was waiting. I was just waiting here. But I'm back. Sorry, my parents called. So
I mean, if you got to take off, man.
No, it was nothing. She said, "Did you call me?" And I said, "No." And then she starts talking like, "Mom, I'm on a show."
All right. So, well, that sounds great. So, Hutch, how familiar are you with like the late 50s and the early 60s Wonder Woman?
I can't say I've read any. I've seen a lot of covers of things that I did not want to read, where it's all about like she's got 3 possible boyfriends and they're all half animals or something. It's like Mer Boy versus Horse Guy or something like that. It's just it's like a centaur and a merman and an ape who loves her or something like that. It's just, I swear I've seen 10 issues like that or something.
It sounds so 60s. It's so they're doing the same. Yeah, it's the Superman, same thing. Yeah.
I would say that's definitely Kanigher. Dragging that out.
Isaac says, "Mom, I'm doing my super secret club meeting."
I mean, it kind of says something that the best character to come out of the 60s is Egg Foo.
I love Egg Foo. Egg Foo's great.
Well, and accidentally Donna Troy, but
I was gonna say, I like
I'm laughing at Isaac.
Yeah. That's great.
The funny thing for me is that I like Wonder Girl infinitely more than I like Wonder Woman.
You are not the only one.
I can see that because Wonder Girl is not loaded up with all the
symbolism,
representation. This is womanhood. She's Wonder Girl.
And that was the thing I was going to say earlier. It's very curious because when you talk about the Trinity here, Batman doesn't just have 5 books going on at once. He also has Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Robin, Other Robin, Third Robin. Spoiler, right? This entire Bat family. Superman has Batgirl. Has Superboy, Supergirl, Crypto, right? Wonder Woman really never expanded the universe, right? It's like she's never had more than one sidekick at any one time, and 90% of that time, that character is just off with the Teen Titans and not actually even being part of her world.
I liked reading when Artemis replaced her briefly. That was kind of fun because that was an early Mike Diodato. That's really good.
Well, and the thing about that that's so frustrating in terms of the modern lens is it's not like there are a dearth of Wonder Woman characters that could be part of this sisterhood of the Incredible, right?
You didn't want to read the spin-off of Etta Candy?
No, well, not necessarily Etta Candy per se, but I mean a little more recent. Like you have Artemis, You've got, of course, Donna Troy. You have my brain is escaping me for a moment. Fury has never been well used by anybody but
the Golden Age Fury
either
and then,
one.
or
Either one. Yeah.
who was invented as the new
Roy Thomas.
mother when
Mhm.
Golden Age Wonder Woman was removed. They invented the Golden Age Fury.
Right.
And then
but
that's the mother of Fury who's in Infinity Incorporated. I'm just explaining who you mean,
Right.
Fury, because we haven't seen her much.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the what I got thinking about is I cannot remember her name. The on Paradise Island, she's the Black Wonder Woman. Nubia, jeepers, for a total brain fart. There are lots of characters that you could have, given distinct personalities and histories and all the same kind of stuff that you have with the Batman and Superman family, but it's just never been done. And this comes to something that kind of to at least put in the win. I don't necessarily want to get into it right now because I don't want to derail the topic too much right here. But it's interesting in some ways. Like you have the Batman family, right? But they're not. Almost none of them are actually Batman's family, right? Because the archetype of Batman specifically had been the idea about the House of Nobles and the forgotten Lord of the Manor who doesn't have an heir, and so he has a squire, and you've got all these kind of European ideas of the House of Wayne that are built into Batman. And then with Superman, they kind of they have people that they're first of all, you had Supergirl who was his cousin and then wasn't his cousin, and you had Superboy who was his clone but also kind of his brother. But they have definitely more of
like 3 Superboys as
right.
well, right?
Yeah, and they have kind of this idea, at least in the late modern era, or whatever you want to call it, this idea about Superman's family being more of a biological family, or at least having the dynamics of a biological family. But Wonder Woman doesn't. They because she has to be this feminist icon, they forestall her from having a biologic family. And
until Tom King's, right?
Until Tom King, and there've been a little bit here and there, but I mean, even then, all of this thing is she's forestalled from being a woman in a lot of ways, right? So she gets to be this homunculus of a female without actually incorporating the full nature of womanhood. At least that's what seems to me partly, but I don't think that's necessarily what caused.
You could, much like the Bat family, you could still have a family of her own outside simply because you've got this entire island of Amazons. Batman has the Batcave as his home hub. Superman has the Fortress of Solitude. I wonder if it was a mistake taking Wonder Woman away from her island and bringing her into all this, this other city where she doesn't really have much of a home, to my knowledge.
I know this is going to sound. How do I say this? How do I thread this needle? In order for her to also not just be a feminist icon, but a sex symbol as well, you're going to see that forestalling a bit, because once you mom her up, it changes her completely. The example here I'll give is Sue Storm. Like, she's the Marm character, and I'm not saying she can't be sexy at all, but I am saying it does change a lot about how we see a character.
Well, I would suggest that she doesn't even have to be the mom. She could be the daughter, with Hippolyta as the Professor X of the group.
Yeah, but I mean, the minute I think one of the problems that you have with something like that is that female group dynamics, are such that you don't listen to the non-moms, right? You have mom, and you have all the other women that claw for position, and they submit to that matronly authority, or try to subvert that matronly authority. That's what Cinderella is all about. Is about who's going to be the matron of the household, and the rightful matron of the house is Cinderella because she is the father's daughter, and the stepmother has been keeping the dead father's affection that's stored up in the family wealth away from Cinderella, So the only hope Cinderella has to become the matron of the family is to become the queen of the land. And in so doing, she retains the role that her father had intended to be left for her. And so that's the whole dynamic is you have, which is one of the things that you have with that is, it is different from the male's perspective in the Bat family. Even if you never replace Batman, there's this implicit idea that, Batman's training his replacement, right? He's training Dick, he's training Tim, he's training Damian to take over the role of Lord of the Manor, right? But with Wonder Woman, if she's not the matron, then she's one of the sisters that's lobbying to be the next matron.
Broadly speaking, yeah, no, it's the thing. The point I really like that you're putting down is the fact that we're not going to get away from the fact that because not just because she's a symbol, because she is a woman, the dynamics of her character are going to be different than just a male character.
Mm-hmm.
She's not just an interchangeable unit with like male characters and how you write them and the implications of what happens when you deal with them, because we have a different creature on our hands. We have a woman. And so how you write her, what you do with her is going to have different, consequences to it. And how you write her in relation to other characters is also going to have. I was just go ahead, Hutch. You muted.
Sorry, finish your thought. Go ahead. I just wanted to say something next. That's all.
No, please do.
Well, I was just going to say that how you write Wonder Woman is tough, is because you can't give her just the regular motivations that you would give any other character. Like, what does she want with Steve? Does she want to marry him? It's like even the thought of her being a wife, who keeps a household, even if it's not what she does all day. It's like how Tom King mocked that in that, fantasy. And it's like,
right.
It's like, well, what is she supposed to want? And by the way, you never see a single Amazon cooking. Somebody's feeding all those Amazons. You never see an Amazon cooking. All they ever do is train for war, which never happens on that island. And and they, it's like, who's cooking? Who's doing the science? Who's doing, there's all this other stuff that has to be done. Who's cleaning the garbage?
I think in the Golden Age it was the sort of like science does it. We have a machine that does it because we've evolved
Right.
past that. I think it was that kind of vision for. But no, I see your point.
Yeah.
And it goes to the heart of some things actually tie in with other superheroes. Umberto Eco has a very famous essay on the myth of Superman. And he talks about the fact that superheroes are halfway between myths and novels, or essentially halfway between being aspirational characters who aren't real and realistic characters. And that's partly why we see them have dual identities. The secret identity that's tied to Earth, and then the mythological one that's beyond us. And the simple fact of the matter is that the way Eco describes it is he says that if you do anything except keep the status quo the same, you are taking a step, what he calls, towards death. If you get married, you have, even if it takes 100 years afterwards, you've taken the next step on your journey to dying. And if you have kids, the same thing. And so superheroes have to be, like I said, halfway between, because they can't be consumed. They can't, go that full journey. But there has to be at least the illusion that they can.
Many times we think they probably should, and they should have a limited run and retire. And
completely disagree, but I love the fact that they're this way. But however, you have to acknowledge that if you are going to do this, it also comes with consequences as well, which is,
and going back to the Silver and the Golden Age, and even the Silver Age silliness, and the fact that I think that Wonder Woman was basically just on life support during a lot of that time, was just running on rails. The fact of the matter is that you had a really small window when people were reading the comics. And so Kanigher's favorite trick of just reusing the last plot he'd done, pulling 4B out of the closet again, out of the Rolodex again, right? That worked well in that time frame, And this idea of the illusion of change is easier to sell when somebody's only reading your product for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And when we are, all of us at this table here, this virtual table, would be anathema to the comic readers of the 50s and early 60s. The idea that we've been spending 40 years of our lives reading these funny books, right? Actually, you younger guys, I don't know if you even hit 40 yet.
Well, now here's the thing. On that note, like you asked, what does she want with Steve Trevor? I mean, look at a comic like Blondie or one of the Archie girls. Heck, even all the male characters and superheroes anyway are already doing this. It was always just the case of the young, attractive, single person, dating around. Nobody ever really gave a thought to where that was going to go.
Well, I mean, and Blondie's a kind of a different story too, because Blondie, they did age all the characters up to middle age.
Up till exactly then.
But it took
exactly
like
then.
Years.
Yeah. And then they age them up, and so you get to see Dagwood Bumstead grow into a man who's taking care of his family on his own.
Right, but that took like 40 years to ever get there.
But then they stayed there. I mean, that's the thing is like, and the children grew up and moved out, and that was the end of the story. But then they keep repeating that part of it.
Right.
Which, I mean, I think there's a certain beauty to all of that too. But also,
I mean, look at Archie, right? It's like, no, he's never actually going to marry either Veronica or Betty. They are stuck in the,
Well,
they've got enough alternate universe takes. They can kind of like have their cake.
Well, and the other thing with Archie, they have done the, I choose Betty, I choose Veronica, future cast, and then the next month everything's back to the Neverwin.
Exactly.
And I know Archie, that can work perfectly well, because of the way like they don't maintain any sort of continuity at all. The problem that comes to is that we, who, like I said, we're these comic pariahs. We're wanting something more from our
and I agree with that. I'm just saying, as long as we are doing this constant continuation forever, no one ever asked what's going to happen between Batman and Catwoman.
Well, and it's like, who was it that said? Somebody once said they put the nail in American comics the day they let Robin drive the car. Once they acknowledged that Robin was 16, suddenly death enters the world.
Do you know what's funny is that it's like everyone draws their line for the day comics died in a sense. Like Charles Schultz, who's like writing Peanuts, is like, the minute Superman started flying, comics died, and it's just it just cracks me up. You know what I mean? It's just like
right. But I mean, I would put a little more weight behind the idea about acknowledging that the Dick is growing up, because as the teen sidekick, suddenly he's his childhood is over. Right. I mean, there's a moment where that he cannot be the boy wonder. He must be the teen wonder.
And ironically, he is one who really did have quite a bit of growing up, before eventually finding that, whatever you call it, that point of
definitely.
So, you end up having him grow up, but Batman isn't. Right. It's like, well, this is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not worried about, when I said that, does she. I'm not talking about like, let's get them married off. I'm just saying, what is Wonder Woman's goal? It would be
right. And to that, I'm saying someone like Blondie can just be the teenage girl,
right? But I'm just saying that if she were to even say, out loud, I hope that Steve marries me, a whole bunch of feminists would be going, what are you doing?
Nowadays, but that wouldn't have,
but that's the point. That's the point, is that affects what you can do with her, because there would be a sizable chunk of the audience who will be mad no matter what you do with her. If you have her, saying, I would really like to end up married and having kids someday, you've automatically ruined these women who write for Ms. Magazine that Wonder Woman is the perfect ideal. And it's like, no, you've just ruined this.
Well, of course, part of this is the fact that feminism has changed its definition, several times over the decades.
Well, sort of.
But I think it would be
definitely a through line. We don't need to get into that right now.
I think it would be good to have, and actually, considering how much conflict drives stories, it would be good to have like Wonder Woman is a person, and she has dreams and goals, and her mom is like, you will represent us and go out and solve the man's world, or whatever she's now charged with. You will bring everybody over to peace and love in the old times, or whatever, it's
And whips.
and the whatever she's commanded with, and whatever the gods charge her with. And it's like, I just want to, I would like to just, I've fallen in love with this guy who he calls me Angel from the moment I rescued him, and I would really love to end up with him. And, it actually is a conflict that could be addressed. And actually you could have scenes where, as, she's depending what she is, because George Perez had her being an ambassador, and she actually had like ambassadorial jobs, and she lectured at the UN. I don't even know if she does that anymore. I don't know what she is now. But, if she's speaking in public and says, something, about what, she yearns to do, or if somebody asks her, hey, go make me a sandwich. And she's like, I love making sandwiches for me. It's like, she's like, I actually like working in the kitchen. And then somebody's like, no, don't say you're working in the kitchen. Just have her frustrated with the way she's locked in as a representative of women, and she didn't ask for that.
So, I feel like we're getting spoilers for when you write her.
Well, yeah.
But I will say that, because I'm not saying, I think you raised some interesting points. I don't know if I'd take her in the direction that you're taking her there. Sure. I do think, though, although I'm definitely interested in seeing it. So the minute you do write it, I will take a look. So I'm saying that. So the second thing I want to bring up is the fact that I think that Wonder Woman is great as a counterpoint. Because she's a feminist, because she's meant to be like an opposition to man's world, but it still is a man's world. The fact that she can be a counterpoint, I think, is itself interesting. I was just reading the Superman versus Wonder Woman by Jerry Conway, which is a much better comic than I thought it would be. It's actually got fantastic art, and the story, it was a good comic. I was really impressed by it.
When was that?
1977, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's based Bronze Age, essentially. And it, you guys had it good in the Bronze Age. I was reading this Bronze Age comic, and I was like, I see why some guys really love this age. It's got it's got a great balance between the superhero aesthetic, which is lighthearted, but also everything taken very seriously, without it going so serious that it's like, let's do rape now, let's tackle that. It was like, no, the stories were 100% sincere, and a little more mature, but at the same time without getting like icky. Anyway, setting that aside, Wonder Woman in that story is meant to be a kind of an antagonistic protagonist. So like the whole story there is that it's during it's set during the Golden Age. So it's a comic from the 70s, but it's set during World War II. And Jerry Conway, with the benefit of hindsight, is able to kind of reinterpret these characters in ways that they would never have done during the Golden Age. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that in the Golden Age, Superman would never go and fight in Midway or in a battle around there, but in this comic, he does. They put Superman in history, even though at the time they actually avoided history, which is very fascinating. But on top of that, it's all the whole plot, the whole reason why Superman and Wonder Woman are at loggerheads and end up kind of fighting a bit in classic superhero fashion is the fact that it's about the Manhattan Project, which again, Siegel and Schuster and Marston had no idea about until after it happened. So again, we're reading backwards. And so Superman finds out about the Manhattan Project, and he's not happy about it, but he's like, okay, I trust America. And Wonder Woman goes, this thing from man's world cannot be allowed to exist. It's like a Pandora's box all over again. It's going to destroy the world. And so you have a fantastic conflict because of the fact that Wonder Woman is being written as the counterpoint feminist that she is.
Now wait a second, Twitless. What gender was Pandora?
That's fair. And And Wonder Woman, to be fair, she's not like, but it's an interesting point, because she being written in character as this counterpoint feminist makes a very good story here, because she's like, no, and she attacks she tries to attack the project, and that's why she and Superman end up having a little duel before they have to team up and actually fight Baron Blitzkrieg, and then the Japanese representative. But
one really quick note, I just want to take time to point out just how amazing like the intuitive Jerry Conway was, from like, late 60s all the way through the 80s. Like Jerry Conway just writing and thinking about stories and making stories. Dude was brilliant. Then he gets old and starts thinking about his stories, and he second guesses every damn word he ever wrote. Come on, Jerry. You were brilliant for a while. That's
an interesting detail as well. I just to go back to what we were talking about with Wonder Woman, I think that her being the feminist counterpoint can actually serve the story quite well. When it's being used in places like this with Conway, it was like, you know what? This made for good story. It made for her position was understandable.
Well,
she was like,
that is a lot of the way. Sorry to cut you off there. I missed you thing, but that is actually really interesting you bring that out, because that's very much how Darwin Cook used her in New Frontier. Along the same like thread of usage. Very interesting. Yeah.
I think I like Conway's version a little better, because Cook, when Cook does it, she's a little more snide about it, and I don't particularly like that flavor. Conway's is mostly just like, oh my, she's just like taken aback. I have to stop this. And again, she has this position that's kind of understandable enough that you can see why she and Superman would end up on different sides of an issue and feel the need to use violent force to then stop it, which gives a classic superhero combat situation. But again, it's like, I think that's part of the sweet spot for me, at least. I think that you get some of that in the Justice League and Unlimited cartoon with McDuffie.
Yes.
She's meant to be, again, a bit of the feminist counterpoint, but in a way that never makes it feel like, because they have that whole is it a two-parter or is it one-parter where it's like there's an Amazon who tries to kill all men with a virus. Yeah.
That's a very frustrating episode. And I believe that was a two-parter, wasn't it?
If it was from season one, all the season ones were two-parters.
Yeah. And she has like a virus that renders all the men. It doesn't kill them all, but knocks them out. They don't want to go all, Why the Last Man, but unlike Why the Last Man, where they're really struggling, it's like they knock all the men out and there's fires breaking out, and then there's like the female firefighters show up and put out the fire, and it isn't a problem. And it's like, no, they would have a real trouble. And there's only two of them on that truck. It's like, and they're all like, we've got this. It's okay. And it's like, no, the world would be going to hell a lot more than what it's looking like.
But ultimately,
they don't want to deal with it,
But ultimately, Wonder Woman sides against that position.
Yeah.
Even though she's like, hey, I'm not all pro men here. You can't just do this. You can't just like punish all the men on the world like this. I'm not going to let you do that. So
right.
even in her feminist counterpointing to the rest of the mostly male Justice League, she's going to still be a hero at the end of the day, above all, which is what makes her a superhero and why people are going to like her. So those are places where I think Wonder Woman works really well. I think where she works the least is when a writer, female or otherwise, and unfortunately there's been quite a few, I think, men who do this, not just women writers, who say, I'm going to use Wonder Woman as a bludgeon to punish men I think are misogynist. And I think that's where it gets like the worst. I think those are the times where when it's the most obnoxious to read her, because you have all the other complications that we discussed, but then you get her being used as one of the most ideological preaching kind of characters ever. Even more so than others because of the other implications of her. So when she is written poorly in that vein, you see it more than I think other characters because of how obnoxious it becomes. It's like, I'm Wonder Woman. I'm going to punch you because I'm a woman and you're a man and you're weaker than me because I'm a woman. And that's like, oh my gosh, shut up. Like I'm trying to read some escapist literature here. So I think that's where I think the worst of it comes out. Personally, I don't know what you guys think about
No,
that.
I think you're definitely on the trajectory of how that goes on. But one of the things that I really think, specifically looking at From the Crisis On, so you get Perez coming on, and his run starts so great, and then I don't know if it's when he leaves a title or what, but it sort of like pans out to just be this sort of blasé, boring stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another writer, I can't remember who it was right after, somebody else will just come in and they'll revitalize the character and take it back to its roots. And
John Byrne,
there you go.
yeah,
and they'll just kind of fizzle toward the end of it. And then even Phil Jimenez, the artist, came in and wrote several issues, and his first several are just dynamite, just great, deep lore digging into it stuff, great exploration of the universe, the motivation, the characters is really great. And then it just starts being like a soap opera or just a punch 'em up, and it loses the heart, it loses the direction, and then until somebody else comes in there. And even when we were looking at this Tom King, right, the most recent one we all read together, first couple issues had real potential, really great. And of course, Tom King always does this,
yeah,
right? So it's not Wonder Woman that's doing it for King necessarily, but it's the same cycle where something will start really strong and then never ends well.
To be fair, that's the history of all superhero comics.
Oh, come on.
I
knew someone was going to say that.
There might be something to that, legitimately, right? I mean, that there could be something to that where the minute you move, if people try to violate the formula too much, there just isn't that much or they can't pull it off really well. I mean,
look how even movies manage to make this mistake.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and there's a reason that runs end, but sometimes runs end when the story's over, and I don't know that I can't think of a Wonder Woman run that ended when the story was over, right? It was, and I may be wrong. I haven't read everything, obviously, but
yeah. The best, I thought, there was the George Perez revamp, which was good in so many ways, except for bringing her in as a modern character, which just wrecked a lot of stuff. And I understand that they wanted to have the fish out of water thing. And if you here she is, fish out of water, and now we jump 5 years forward, and that's not part of her anymore because she's been here 5 years, or however much time. So they can't do that the way they did with Man of Steel. And so that was just always the biggest problem with it, because I thought that he wrote some of the best stories. I thought he had the most amazing explanation for her costume, and it's a moving story, and it's really good. But then because it turns out that the reason she's called Diana is because Steve's mom was called Diana, and her plane went down on Paradise Island. And they created some armor because she saved the queen's life, but died in rescuing her. And so they have this armor that they set it up. And when she has a daughter, she names her Diana after the woman who saved her. And so Steve, in an odd series of events, ends up on the same island, and he meets this woman named Diana. Well, that's why. And her armor looks like American iconography because it was based off of all the patches and stuff off of Diana's coat. I thought that was a great idea. And because it's always been hard to explain why she has this very patriotic outfit from the Greek island that she's from, and I thought it was a very good story. But then, like you say, after about 40, 50 issues, he was gone, and who followed was just terrible. And then John Byrne picked her up and moved her to a different city and gave her a different woman with a different daughter to be her friend, which is the same thing that George Perez had. And it's almost like stealing the revamp a bit. It's like a, what do we call it now? It's not a reboot, but it's a
retcon.
Not a retcon. It's kind of like the we've rebooted it, but not really sort of thing. Where
it's about soft reboot.
Soft reboot. That's what you're. Yeah, it was a soft reboot, really, because he started explaining. He gave her the invisible jet back and explained why it exists, because it was like some kind of shapeless thing that could be whatever she wanted. It could be a flying chariot, or she says, I want it to be a plane, it becomes a plane. I thought that was a good idea, because it always seemed weird that there's a robot plane and you're making that work with, the Greek island stuff.
Well, and then
So,
the fun thing about
yeah.
that too was one of my favorite parts about that run, and it was legitimately one of my favorite parts, is they decide that she spent all this time in Gateway City, which is definitely not Seattle, and she's officially the ambassador to the U.S. from Themyscira. They make that, so she decides, wait a second, if I'm the ambassador, I need to be doing ambassador things. So I'm going to move to D.C. Oh, that's really great. But there's no place for your embassy anywhere. That's okay. I've got my invisible jet, which will also double as my embassy when I'm here.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that. Then I think the best, aside from that, the best run that I remember was, I want to say it was Gail Simone's, but because Steve was not her boyfriend, that was the problem, is that they revamped it with him being about 50 years old and not really in love with Diana. And so that whole relationship was gone. That was something that George Perez got rid of. So she goes to where, this is Gail Simone's series. It started over as a new #1. Wonder Woman has this white outfit. She kind of looks like Linda Carter in the 70s, with the big glasses and everything, almost. And she's working for a government agency, and she's working with Nemesis, the guy who can change his face, who looks a lot like Steve Trevor did, the nice blonde hair and everything. And so she kind of put things back without it being Steve Trevor. And it was a cool run. I don't think it lasted very long because, it kind of gets bogged down in crossovers and, other stuff. But I remember initially it was at least a nice attempt at giving her something to do aside from just being ambassador to mankind.
Yeah.
She actually had a job again.
And wasn't that right after the
9/11?
Well, no, I was thinking it was just before the start. I think I was thinking that it started just before 9/11, but I was thinking it was just after the Artemis. Maybe not just after, but shortly after the Artemis thing, and I think she'd come back, reclaimed her role as Wonder Woman, and then something happened and she lost her powers. And
I don't remember. I believe it was the 2000s, but I don't. And the Artemis thing was in the mid 90s. So
yeah, that's right. You're right. I had a lot of life happen in those years, so some of it probably bled together.
Yeah.
Did someone say 9/11?
Got married, had some kids.
I always thought that Wonder Woman, more than any other character, should be the one who responds to 9/11, because, you've got these backwards people who, stick all their women in vague black costumes, and here's Wonder Woman running around in a swimsuit. It's like, you can have her take a stand, because obviously she doesn't believe in covering yourself up head to toe.
So here's where it gets interesting, and this is something I noticed in the Wonder Woman Superman versus Superman story, because normally Wonder Woman is just superior to any man, right? But in the at the climax of this story, you had Baron Blitzkrieg was the German bad guy that Superman has to fight. Because really, Superman versus Wonder Woman is just going to turn into basically not even a stalemate, but just before we even really have a chance to really get going in this fight, we're going to fight some real villains. So we're going to leave that question unsettled, which is what they should do. And so Wonder Woman has to fight a Japanese guy called Sumo, who's a samurai, which is really funny. And he has he ends up having like mystic powers that make him stronger. But what's very interesting is the fact that when Wonder Woman is fighting him, you have a very early, I would call it 1970s edition of intersectionality, because what you have is Wonder Woman who's representing feminist women's empowerment, but she's also pretty much coded as a white woman, and you have her fighting a guy from Japan who's dressed up in traditional Eastern garb. And so, he's obviously a very honorable guy. He's committed to his code, his emperor, his nation, and you suddenly have this like, who's on top of the stack here? if we just show that Wonder Woman is superior, it's not just a woman being superior over a man. You have a white woman being superior to a Japanese person who is very committed to his culture. And so what you end up having, like I said, is this interesting kind of dance you have to do regarding, portraying those conflicts. So what's interesting is the fact that Wonder Woman is not just a comment on women's empowerment. She's also a commentary largely on also the Western side of her. And to go back to Hetch's point, make sure I don't lose my thread here. You had the same issue there, right? I believe there were some moments where she went overseas to the Middle East, if I'm not mistaken, and there's some people who pick up some stones and toss them at her. And the answer isn't just for her to just like smack those people, because that would be her basically saying that her culture and values are superior to theirs. Right. And that walks straight into not just a feminist, but like I said, a feminist intersectional problem, which has, again, we see this all the time in modern discussions. It's not an easy, it may be easy for us in our armchairs to solve here on our panel, but out in the real world, it's not easy. It doesn't seem to be easy or as easy to be able to just walk in and just say, well, my culture is better than yours. Even if it is. So
yeah, it's fair to, I think it is fair to say you should not assert something like that. That's something that ought to be demonstrated, not asserted. Abigail may have the winning.
That's how you beat the progressive stack. No, but yeah, to Hutch's point though, like I said, that because she is that representational feminist icon, as feminism became more intersectional, and it is, that question got way more complicated, and it wasn't just her saying, you know what, take off those hijabs. Like that's like the women who are wearing the hijabs would like rise up against you and say, how dare you? Like they do that today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So here,
I wasn't, and the whole thing is she can't interfere in the same way as in the 1940s. You can't have her solve the problem of the terrorism that we're fighting. You can't just have, because she could, but you can't, but I was not trying to say Wonder Woman should go out and defeat Al Qaeda any more than Batman should. But there's
sure, I was just pointing out the interesting questions that issues that runs into.
But even having her tackle some issues in her book, it would be the right place to do it. And it's like I think you can tackle that women shouldn't be stoned to death without it saying my culture is better than yours.
Right, I was gonna say, like, it doesn't have to be a culture war. Why can't we ever just talk about what's right and wrong?
So in the 2000s, it was in the 2000s.
I don't care. Every artist has their own voice.
Because the thing is because part of what it comes down to is
in the early 2000s there was some of that. Arguably, if they're in pop culture, not just in comics, but in television as well, there was a little bit of a dance. There was an attempt to be nuanced there, but there was a stance of like, no, if you're going to be oppressive like this, we're going to come in and we're going to, like in the Iraq War, the pop culture was kind of on pro Bush's side there, at least initially, and so you'd see more of that. But as that war dragged on, it got less conviction until that it basically has inverted.
And part of what it has to do too is the other side of it is that, like, we are not as a society prepared to have conversations about ethical and meta-ethical issues.
Boy, is that true.
Because people don't want to understand that all art and all discussions of morality are intrinsically political. Now, they're not necessarily electoral political. You can't show your registration card and demonstrate your moral character, right? But we act morality out in public, and politics is the art of the public. It's the art. It's the affairs of people in society. Those are necessarily political, and all political actions have moral aspects to them. And so you can't really have a story of good guys versus bad guys without making a station about what we think the rules of society ought to be. And the rules of society are intrinsically related to the political in one shape or another.
This also fits right into the why it's never a good idea to preach. If you're going to have this discussion, try to find a way to illustrate it rather than just telling me what you think is true.
Yep, that's exactly true, and that's I think going back to Hutch's point. If we had if there are story elements that talk about these issues, they are a playground of the mind in which the mind can process those issues without just having the crazed man with the sandwich board proclaiming the end of the world. Now, I think there are places and times where the crazed man with the sandwich board, is the appropriate avenue for that kind of conversation. But not every avenue is appropriate for the crazed man with the sandwich board.
Regardless of whether you're preaching it or illustrating it, it got more complicated as time wore on from the early 2000s to approach those conversations one way or the other. I'm not even commenting on the right or wrong of it. Like I said, I'm with you guys. Many of us probably share a lot of the similar values of what we'd want to say in those types of stories. Right. I agree with Hutch. I want to be able to just say, can we all agree that culture is wrong for wanting to stone people for that? Yeah. That being said, because of Wonder Woman's position, and a lot of intersectionality came out of feminism, like her in particular, you could see how this historically became such a sticky wicket, difficult to handle because of who she is. And I think it's interesting to try what Hutch was proposing. I just don't know if it can be successfully done in terms of separating her from what she is as a symbol. Right. I think that some of the like the story I mentioned earlier, I think some of the best stories I've seen from Wonder Woman are where they embrace her symbol and make it just really interesting and understandable that she would have this position and then play off it. If you have a character who's going to be a feminist from Amazonia, Paradise Island, Themyscira, then embrace that, understand that, and then work with it and make her still interesting and unique as that symbol. And make her goal be an aspirational one. And
you're roboting just a little bit there, man.
Sorry. Yeah. I don't want to go too much into how I would write Wonder Woman. I just want to say that I think that this just historically we've gotten good stories out of her. I think when she's played true to form and people have done that in a way that plays into good storytelling. And then when she's used as a bludgeon to just beat somebody, because like I said, for the past 15 years now, it's just been Trump. Everything's just been a commentary on one particular or two. It's either Trump or Putin. We live in the era of like everything in pop culture has to circle the drain around between 2 to 3 political individuals, and maybe you could add a third if you want to add Benjamin Netanyahu. So we got 3, right? So like everything in our culture is going to be either a commentary on Orange Man, Russian man, or Israeli man. And when Wonder Woman is used in that way to just take me out of the story and remind me how much of your personal politics.
Yeah.
How much?
And for 8 years before that, it was Obama was everywhere in comics.
Right. Yeah.
And I just like to say that when you do that, maybe you're making her a little less wonderful.
Yeah. The odd thing about they won't use her to come and all I'm asking for is like what we used to call relevance, what Green Lantern and Green Arrow used to chase, trying to address the actual issues of the day instead of being off fighting galactic villains. It's like, well, let's actually look at some of the problems going on in America. Now that weren't actually comics that sold very well, but it is an idea. You can do that with your comics, and it's like that's all I was wanting to do. But the funny thing is that while they won't use Wonder Woman to tackle, any issues or address anything specifically that affects women, you think that would just be a natural topic. It gives you some topics to kind of cover whatever the stories are that you come up with, But they instead gave it a wide, berth and never got near it. But they used Wonder Woman to tackle the Bush administration and all the things they don't like that's going on in America. That's fine, because they they had the Amazons invade America. Remember America? I forget what the name of the Amazons Attack was. That the name
Amazon's
of the
Attack,
miniseries?
yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
and
bees. That's the thing that Taylor quotes or Copernicus quotes all the time.
and it's just I only saw one tie-in issue, and there's like all the women who have ever made contact with any Amazons in America have been captured. Like anybody who works with them or knows them has been captured and is being put on a train, and they it's like just for knowing these other people, and it's there's like American army people on the train, and then the train gets stopped and all the women start running, and the army guys try to shoot them in the back as these unarmed women as they're running away. And it's like, this, first of all, you can't even use the army on American soil, but they wouldn't shoot unarmed women in the back. I don't know if I have to tell you that American army guys generally wouldn't do that. But what does it take to write something like that? That's how crazy. And the weird thing is that DC allows that, but they won't let you actually tackle some real world issues. Yeah, all the anti-Bush stuff, they could write anything they wanted everywhere. Sorry, my dog keeps coming in to seek attention. So, anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want to talk about Amazon's attack. I just think it's weird that they do stuff like that,
Yeah. So one of the things that we've talked about, what's wrong with Wonder Woman, what goes wrong is really what I mean. I picked the title because I thought it was funny. But for one of the big threads that we've talked about today is the idea that Wonder Woman, because of who she is less of a character and more of an icon. And that can affect the writing. We have some people that believe that she's a tool, more of a tool and less of a character. And because there's been some shallowness to how she's been portrayed for many years, I think there's definitely some argument that can be made with that. She definitely did not have the same level of development as Batman and Superman had through much of her years. Although I think we all can point to specific, golden moments in her character. And I tell you what, I had not seen Superman versus Wonder Woman before. You were started talking about on Twitter earlier today, and I got to seek that out. That looks great.
Oh gosh, yeah. I was really. I had my bar was really low when I first saw. Well, this is gonna be terrible. And they advertised it. There was an editor who was being a little obnoxious in a Superman book, and so I mentioned it. They think they're doing a reprint of it or something, and I sought it out, and I was like, this is way better than I.
Yeah.
Fantastic layout work.
And I've suggested, but back to what I was saying, the thing I've suggested in some ways is I think that there's a certain level of arrested development that keeps the character from growing to a place where she has enough character and enough consistency that you have those kind of broadly consistent Wonder Woman stories that everybody sees are kind of good, right? That's been part of my position, but I want to throw something at you guys, something that I have been thinking about in the back of my head for probably nearly a decade at this point. And it's not quite a formal idea. It's a part of an idea. And it comes back to in fiction and in some people argue in mythology as well, there are these three female archetypes that people use, the maiden, the matron, and the crone, to kind of represent the phases of womanhood and how a woman's life is very much about moving through these different things, right? Different roles in society, right? But the idea that I have had, and I've been playing around with and just watching as people grow up and as life moves along, I think in some ways that those archetypes are part of like every moment of every woman's life, right? A woman either has to or often just ends up embodying some aspect of those roles every day, right? And it seems to me that with Wonder Woman, they want her to she some is acts a little matronly, but is tied to this idea of maidenhood, whether not necessarily literal like virginity, but the idea of young woman, the young, the vibrant aspect. And so it chokes out the ability for her to fully be matronly or fully be that grandmotherly kind older woman aspect that even young women have when dealing with others in their lives, right? And does that sound like anything that makes sense, or am I just crazy?
I don't know. It never felt she seemed particularly young. Part of that, I suppose, another part of it is using the word woman instead of girl in her name. But like, she always comes off more like the grumpy barbarian. I mean, not barbarian, librarian to me than a young girl here to have adventures.
Right.
It really does depend on like where you're reading her from, though, because like that golden age, she's like I said.
Yeah, then I could see that because they
she's
drew
just
her
having
that
fun. She's just having fun. Bullets and bracelets, my favorite game. Again, it's
right.
It's
but the
hilarious.
more stern you make her, and they always do that nowadays, and especially the more muscular you make her, the less youth you're going to get out of her.
So wait, let me understand your question. You're saying that she's locked into one of the archetypes, which prevents her from being a well-rounded character. Is that kind of what you're going at? Okay.
Yes.
Perhaps that archetype changes over time.
I was going to say, yeah, it's kind of hard because but it is fair to be broad strokes. So to broad stroke it, yes, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to think about that more.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is kind of interesting because, like, compare her to another naming convention here, right? You have the Fantastic Four. And originally, she was called the Invisible Girl. Later on, they changed her to Invisible Woman. Yet, Sue Storm, like, even when she's married and has a kid, she's still the Invisible Girl.
Sure, but she becomes the Marm figure.
Yeah.
She gets to be the matron.
Yeah, she's absolutely. And even before she's I would argue even before she's married.
She's mommying the whole group. She's the den mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. No, I agree with that. They locked her in as being matronly. She's one of the few. That's why I think she stands out so much.
Well, and that's the see, okay, so like Sue Dibney, and I know I'm hanging on here, but like Sue Dibney is this she has this matronly aspect in the fact that like she and Ralph are such a supportive couple, right? Even though they don't have kids yet, they're this couple unit. And you can see that, man, once they have kids, that kid's going to have everything he needs to be the best, have the best life possible, right? And that's built into her. But she's also this sensual, beautiful, sexy woman. And the way that she deals with the rest of the people in the Justice League has that, the governess, that the social aspects of the crone. She's this fully developed female womanly character. And I don't see that in Wonder Woman.
Well, that's to be fair. I mean, that's part of being a superhero. You know what I mean? Like, one thing I wanted to. It's funny how often in superhero comics the side characters get to, as much as they don't get to do the superhero stuff, they get to do a lot of other normal things. Like Flash Thompson gets to have so much stuff happen to him that and with Spider-Man, they just can't. And I'm not even blaming them for that. I don't want to see Spider-Man get old and have to like walk with assistance and get cricks in his back because I don't want to see that. I want him to be kind of like with James Bond. James Bond is another great example of this. He's an icon. He's meant to be eternally this particular. He's eternally 35. He's this 35-year-old.
My guess is you really didn't like the end of No Time to Die.
I mean, yeah, we don't want to see this, or if we want to see it maybe once as sort of like an off thing we did once, then get him back to as soon as possible being eternally 35. And it means that the side characters get a little more wiggle room to be like, I graduated college with my PhD, and they took Spider-Man like 60, 70 years before Dan Slott finally said, okay, it's been long enough. He gets the degree. It's you're in this puzzle of wanting to move the characters on, and I also think that some of this has to do with us as readers. As we age, we want to see our characters relate to us and our current moment, and once you get past 35 and he's eternally 35, it feels weird. Now you're like, I want to be eternally 45 now because I'm 45. But then if he becomes 70 years old, then the kids are not going to read this.
Well,
So
and of course, this is where if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, because the answer for me is I don't want anything to be eternal. I want to see a beginning and an end, and let me enjoy that story, and then move on to something else.
I disagree with that, because like
I-
there's all. But,
I know I'm completely alone in that here.
but no, I get it. I get the impulse. I understand the impulse.
Well, and I mean, I wouldn't say you're completely alone in that. Our entire universe is based around a fixed Ideal Comics is based around a fixed time scale. So when I'm writing, Chad in high school, the senior year of high school, knowing that I'm in my mind, his death is around the corner. Right, we might not ever see it on the page, but that's looming in the comedy that I write, in the humor that I write. His impending death is out there in the ether somewhere.
But like you're okay with the DC universe lasting forever. You would just prefer each character to move on within it and then be replaced.
I would say the universe as a whole. And I don't even know if
so here's my issue with that, right? So what my issue with that, I totally understand a particular, like if we had an animated show. And here's Spider-Man. We're going to show him from when he's 15 to when he is 70 and he retires. Does that mean when we end that cartoon that we never are able to make another cartoon after it where we do Peter Parker's story again? That's always been my issue with that type of thinking, is that it's like, it almost feels like there'd be like, we could pass a law, you can never tell Peter Parker's 15-year-old story again.
See, the thing is, I'm not necessarily interested in making him 70 years old. I can have a show or something go for 10 years, finish up their 10-year story and be done with it and have their series finale.
Sure.
And it ends wherever it happens to end. One of the things we are up against in any superhero universe is that it is a universe, and it's not just like one cast of characters. You have all these different people, in different titles all over it, and they all interact with each other all the time.
Right.
So you're telling a single story.
You'd have to age them all. Right. Yeah.
Right.
I see what you mean.
And up until, more recently, we weren't doing these massive cinematic universes in film. So you would have a show like Smallville, for instance, and it still works that way, right? This is the story of Clark, and we're going to start, with this first episode and end 10 years later, and that is one story. And you end it, and then you go watch another show. It's hard to do that when the comics are just like this massive, franchise that just keeps going and going in all directions.
Well, and that's one thing too, is because of the flexibility of a drawn written art, the comics are, other people can come and take the wheel. Like I'm thinking back to Rockford Files, right? And when James Garner was done with it, the show was done. You don't have Rockford without James Garner.
Yeah.
And it ended exactly where it began, and it was a great run, infinite rewatchability, but it's still always 1975 there.
And that's why in something like Bond, at least you can, he kind of has generally, up until recently anyway, existed in a kind of just nebulous universe where nothing actually was really in continuity. Each movie was kind of just taken as another Bond movie. When every single title is all constantly working with each other and everybody is guest starring, on each other's titles and everything, that's different because you now are constantly met with that fact that this is a real universe of its own, and you have to actually take into account what's happening.
Okay. Now we have drifted. And Twitless said 15 minutes ago that he had 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
So
so we gotta
get out of here.
we gotta wrap it up.
I wanted to explain why you have this image up there. Because
yes.
I did post it, sent it to you. We were talking about, the Bronze Age comics. This is from about, I think, 1978, 1977. This is the issue that they killed off Iris. And Barry and Iris actually are at a party, and they talk about that they're going to start trying to have kids. He's made the decision, and then all of a sudden somebody's dead at the end of it, and they don't show you until the next issue that it's Iris. Iris is dead, and this is the reason I mention it is we're talking about how you can have there's very good Bronze Age stories that show how you can have a very serious story with very serious consequences. It's got murder. It's got talk of having babies. It talks about the death of his marriage and all that, and you don't have to have on-panel rape to do that, to say we deal with serious stuff here.
Right.
This is this is back when they were 40 cents.
So interestingly enough,
You're
this
killing me. They're
does-
like $5 a piece now. It's
Right?
So, and that's the crazy thing about this story too. This was about the same time as the death of Arthur Jr. over in Aquaman,
Yeah,
right? It was actually
that was a
happening
little
in
bit
Adventure
earlier.
Comics at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is essentially what I'm targeting event for Omega Girl, basically, especially as I go into my first major arc, which is a great segue because I actually have to cut out here in a second. But that's I think Bronze Age. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I see why you guys talk about it so often. Some of it's because, like I said, I think you were reading these, and so, but you guys had it good. This is some good stuff. So
I just love the artwork on that cover, though.
Oh, it's a great cover.
Great
Great cover. So before you leave, one last thing, if you have time. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Lion Saucer asks, if we were to have the best examples of Wonder Woman writing, what books would it be? Top 5 or 10 Wonder Woman stories? No way you're going to get 5 or 10, but give us a couple. Twitless, what are your... Go out there and find these books, if you have time.
For a future episode?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
No, just general recommendations.
just general,
The one I just read, the Superman versus Wonder Woman book, was by Jerry Conway. Was really good. Let's see. Again, some of the stories I'm mentioning are going to be stuff where she's not it's not her main one. But I think Alan Moore's For the Man Who Has Everything is just a great story, but it also features Wonder Woman, and she's able to. It's actually one of the It's an interesting story because she's shown to be a tough, and she's holding her own, but it's a losing battle, and that's kind of we've been talking about how it's difficult to sometimes portray Wonder Woman on the losing side of a fight. This one does. Like Mongol is like a class above her by herself, and she's it's rough, but you feel very invested in the fight as a result. There's a couple parts where he goes a little too far. That's just Alan Moore being a bit of a creep, but but yeah, those are two that come off the top of my head. I think that I really enjoyed. Let's see. I will say that having read a little bit of the current Absolute Wonder Woman, I think it's interesting, a very unique take on the character, and I definitely recommend at least checking it out to see what people even if you go, I hate this, it's a very interesting take. I will also say that is it Leah Thompson who's writing that one? Her take on feminism is very different from Tom King's, and in some ways, I think Thompson's take is better because Thompson is able to show a very because you don't have that situation where you're, as a guy, he's like trying to write an empowered woman. You just have a woman who doesn't have to have that extra hurdle. She's like, I am a woman, so I can. She's able to, I think, to write her a little more in a round fashion. So when she's interacting with the military, she's able to come across as still very much, I'm the superhero. I'm definitely the strongest in the room, but not in a way that's like mean. She's actually very respectful to the military men in the room. She's like, I understand you have a job to do. I also have a job to do. I have to stop this monster, so I need you to do these things, but I'm also here to not create a mess for you. And it was like, it's kind of neat to
Which
see
is
Wonder Woman say that.
yeah, well, and that's
like,
great because that was exactly the spirit that I felt they nailed in the in that first Gal Gadot film.
mm-hmm.
Just that
Really?
quiet confidence, you know.
Yeah. So so like I said, it was interesting that that a female writer was able to actually do that, and Tom King was just like, no, thank you. See what I mean? Like he was trying. I have to write as a man. I have to write this empowered woman. So I'm gonna have to go even. You know what I mean? He has to like do like an extra step there,
Right.
mentally. So that was interesting. So those would be some things I might throw out there. I hope that gives you something to work with.
There we go. That's Twitless's thing. Thank you for coming today. Travel safe and via con Dios. Congratulations on the graduation there, man. That's awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out.
Later. Okay. Hutch, do you have any Wonder Woman recommendations?
I do. Honestly, you couldn't. You would be very happy if you went out and got the first 2 trades of the George Perez run, the Gods and Mortals and Challenge of the Gods. And
I'm
Challenge
full
of the
screen
Gods.
so you can show those off better.
Sure. I can show you that. This is the this reprints 1 through 7, I think. This is the start, the relaunch. It has a first they face off against Ares. It introduces Steve Trevor landing on the island. It goes through the birth of the birth of the Amazons and everything. It's a really great story. That first issue is just a great story. But here's what I was talking about. This is Wonder Woman's going through the afterlife, and she runs into this woman who it turns out is actually Diana Trevor, Steve Trevor's mom. And it's funny because he lays the groundwork for that in several ways. George Perez does throughout the story, just setting up little clues here and there where when Wonder Woman was being very brave and making a speech, and he says, wow, she kind of reminds me of my mom. It was just one time he just said that. It was just that there's just, this is, I would say this is probably issue 12. I don't know. They don't put the numbers on when they reprint it in a big selection, but the whole thing is good. The second one, Challenge of the Gods, is basically what they set up is that the Paradise Island is on top of a doorway to hell, and they are charged with keeping it locked and secured. And every now and then it rips open just a little bit. They have to secure it and close the door, and because the monsters inside are trying to get out.
Like in Lost.
Sort of, yeah. I could see somebody reading this and coming up with Lost. And so in this story, Zeus decides to allow Diana to mate with him. Just invites her up into the clouds and says, I'm here, my child. You have pleased me, and now we will mate. And she's like, no. And he says, what? You rejected me? Okay, now you have to go. And he gives her, like, the trials of Hercules sort of thing. That he actually charges her with going into this doorway to hell, and she has to go through. I forget what the goal is, but anyway, that's what he charges her with because he's displeased with her. And it's a very good story. And like I say, it has this little side story that just explains Steve Trevor's mom, and it's a great story. I'm doing it a very poor summary in summarizing it just as I did. I mean, it's a much better story if you read it. And there's number 20. I think Wonder Woman 20 is the death of Mindy Meyer, who is the publicist for Wonder Woman, the woman who comes up with the name Wonder Woman for Diana. And there's that's just a very memorable story. It's just very well done, emotionally told. Throughout it, you're getting to know Vanessa Capitelis and her mother, Professor Capitelis, who are the supporting characters. And George Perez really helped come up with a cast to support her, aside from just Etta Candy and Steve Trevor. So aside from that, I would say look up Classically, I'm trying to think of pre-crisis stories. I think there's some good ones that come to mind. Number 300 was a good one. That's the one that introduced Fury before they called her anything. She was just the daughter of the Earth 2 Wonder Woman. But that was what introduced her, was in number 300. And I know I've got other stories, but I'd have to go look up numbers and things like that. Seek out the Gail Simone relaunch story. I don't know if it's ever been collected in trade, but I know that some of those issues were very fun, and it seemed like she had a good way to bring Wonder Woman back. I didn't collect it. I wish I did. I think it was just I think it caught me at a time that I was kind of leaving comics. I wasn't looking for anything more to collect around then. I was probably after they killed off Ralph Dibny and they did the 52 and all those sorts of things. So I don't remember exactly when that series was, but it was around the time that I was getting displeased with DC Comics in general, even when every now and then there'd be something like this that would go, well, that looks like she's doing a good job. Gail Simone had a nice idea there. I thought that was good. I read like 1 issue, 2 issues. I meant to get more. I just wasn't going to the comic shops anymore, I don't think. Right around then. So that at least gives you something to start with anyway. I would say get those 2 George Perez trades. You can't go wrong. They're really good.
Yeah. Well, my recommendations would be, they're much newer than that, although there is definitely some great old stuff that I can't think of at the minute. Also, there was the last issue of Wonder Woman before Denny O'Neil took over the book. That was really, really fun. It was like it was supposed to be Hippolyta's very last story ever, and it wasn't, but that was what they were pitching it as at the time. This is back when Hippolyta was blonde.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I would say that the John Byrne run that introduced Cassie Sandsmark. John Byrne, well, he definitely was cribbing Perez's notes in places.
Yeah.
He just had so much fun bringing back the Invisible Jet, introducing forgotten
he brought back
Amazonian
egg food.
tribes.
He brought back egg food, didn't he?
He did bring back egg food. I really enjoy, and I liked young Cassie's storyline, becoming the new Wonder Girl. Was just so much fun. So I definitely improve that. Also, many of the early issues that Phil Jimenez did. In fact, I will go and share the first, I discovered this sort of accidentally because they crossed over with Aquaman lore and with Warlord, Mike Grell's Warlord characters. And in a story where the at the time entirely forgotten Wonder Woman character called Queen Clea, who was an Atlantean queen from a an antediluvian before the sinking of Atlantis. There were 2 kingdoms that got buried under the rock and survived somehow, and one of them was a foe of Golden Age Wonder Woman. And Jimenez went back and reintroduced Queen Clea as a foe who had been time trapped by the Golden Age Wonder Woman, who at that point was Hippolyta, because they'd done a bunch of remixing of the Golden Age back then, and and it was just, I really enjoyed the storyline. So that was, I would recommend those ones. They are very wonky. They're very deep lore, but they're also a lot of fun. So it's not every day you get to see Aquaman and a Warlord in a Wonder Woman book. So so that was pretty fun. But yeah, those are mine. Really short ones. Next week we'll go ahead and wrap the show here, unless anybody else has anything else. Cartoonicus, I realized I didn't give you a chance to pitch your recommendations because of how you did your intro, and I just skipped past you. That wasn't polite. I should have asked.
No problem. I think the results I'm coming to here is that Wonder Woman will always be problematic to write as long as anyone is trying to pit men and women against each other, right?
Well, that's
And,
always.
right. And so for that reason, I think my favorite portrayal of Wonder Woman comes not from any comic, but actually from the cartoon Superhero Girls. Now, that may cause some confusion because I need to explain it. I'm going to put some images up on the screen here just to clarify.
This is the best way to end this show ever.
Because there are at least 3 different IPs called this. So I am not talking about the DC Nation shorts that happened back when DC Nation was still a thing on TV. I'm also not referring to, oops, where is it? Hey, got one more here. The doll line that they ended up making into a cartoon, I think, as well. And I'm not even referring, I can't even find a picture of it, but I'm not referring to the weird anime-inspired New 52 comic where everyone like on Earth was female and it's just... No, what I am referring to is a show that I found on Netflix that is basically Teen Titans Go done right, if it had been done right. They took these characters, they put them in a lighthearted, silly universe, but they didn't make them one big joke.
Oh, you're kidding.
Right. They actually know how to do action in this.
Abigail says the Lauren Faust one. Really, that Lauren Faust is, I don't know if she still is, but she was married to Craig McCracken, who invented the Powerpuff Girls.
Uh-huh.
And she was the like main brain and showrunner for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Is that what I'm understanding? This was a Lauren Faust show? I would have to seek this out if it is.
What is it called?
It's just called DC Superhero Girls.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the problem. There are like so many different things called the same name. But anyway, because this was, basically the equivalent of Teen Titans, kind of downsizing them all into teenagers and putting them in high school, she is devoid of any of the feminist iconography at all. And instead, it focuses entirely on her as the fish out of water. And because it is a lighthearted, semi-comedic thing, she actually becomes really fun and funny with that. She's always 100% extreme as a warrior, for instance. And so they'll be trying to teach her, how to do things around town. Someone's like, man, I'd kill for a hot dog right now. And she's like, you would kill someone for food? Right? She's like, no. It's an expression. See, like, for instance, he points over to a taco stand. If you really are hungry for a burrito, you'd say, I'd kill for a burrito. She hands her some money and says, go ahead and try it. She goes up to the guy, grabs him by the collar, says, give me a burrito and I will kill you. Take my money or die. Yeah.
She's very intense.
Very, very entertaining version of the character. And without really any frustrations. So,
well, that definitely sounds like something worth seeking out. So, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, I've never had Netflix. So, well, that's not true. I used to have the subscription when they still sent DVDs out. Because it was cheaper than going to the video store.
Did you see my note about Wonder Woman 175? I think that's the right 173 through 175. I think was like a multi-part story of Cersei returning and contending with Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman like gets every female character of note, and Cersei gets every supervillain. I mean, even every supervillainess that they could find. Even what's her name? Now I bring it up and I can't remember it. There's even like a minor Firestorm villain appears in it. I mean, they brought everybody back. So, yeah. Now that's going to bug me. I like this character. Why can't I think of it when I have to mention it on a show? What's that?
Plastique?
No. It's the one who's a... I know the weird thing is I can think of her secret identity. It's Brittany Brendan. She's Moonbow. Moonbow, that's right.
Oh, okay.
She's got a moon painted over one eye and a punk rock hairstyle, and I don't know. She was an interesting character, but they never did anything with her until all of a sudden she's showing up in Wonder Woman 175. I thought that was
That's
amazing.
called your writer has a favorite.
Yeah.
Finally gets his chance.
Well, and part of it is Jimenez is like famously. I mean, he cut his teeth on comics and had been around this, had circled around the industry for a lot of years before he got recognized and started getting work. And so like he was a huge fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, huge fanboy. So I mean, and very crazy talented penciler. So
I don't understand why. I mean, I know Jimenez is celebrated, but he should be getting, like, he and Jim Lee should swap attention levels. He should be at the level that Jim Lee is.
Agree. I agree.
Just,
well, and I mean, and Jimenez, it was Jimenez's. This is totally off topic, but it was his idea to take the Neil Ponzer Aquaman suit, the camouflage suit, and give it to Tempest, right? And it looks great. I thought that suit was great on Tempest. I thought that was a wonderful look that they gave him, and it was Jimenez's idea, right? Because he and Ponzer had been close, right? And I thought it was a perfect thing, because Ponzer's story is wonderful, but I mean, it's not a great look long term, and they found a way to preserve it with the Aqualad character in a way that I thought really like was great, was awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, and the miniseries, the Tempest miniseries that Ponzer, I mean that Jimenez drew was just great.
It's Posner, isn't it? Pozn.
It probably is Posner. I'm probably saying it wrong. I probably have the letters backwards. It's like a spaghetti thing. I don't know.
Sure.
I'd have to look at it to be right, and it's in the other room.
I was going to leave it alone until you said it like 5 times.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's the miniseries.
Yes, Neil Posner's miniseries is wonderful. I for crying out loud, it's sitting right over there. I have it out because I was referring to it. Yeah. Because remember, I talked about how issue 3 has like the best summary of his origin.
Yes.
And Posner did that. So yeah. The problem with that costume is it's just very hard to duplicate and get it right all the time. You know, you want your characters, I mean, at least at one time, the idea was that the costumes would be simple and you would have a, what do you call it? The character sheet to make sure that everybody's on model. It's a very hard outfit to have on model. It's better almost if you can say that it's like shape changey, like they did in the Aquaman 2 movie, where it's just it camouflages and changes and it never looks the same twice. You know, that would be okay almost. But the funny thing is, on Brave and the Bold, the animated series, they had Aquaman and his wife and his kid, who is not dead, go on vacation, and his son is like constantly playing video games, but he's wearing the Neil Posner outfit. And it looks really good in animated form. Yeah. Anyway, that's totally off topic, but I thought
off topic. We've strayed entirely off of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Thanks to this amazing Lauren Faust.
It's the end of the show. It's the end of the show. We always go off topic.
We always do. It's true. So guys, next week it's Gear, right?
Yes.
I believe next week is Doug TeNaples' Gear.
Oh.
And
shoot, I don't have that one.
We will make sure you have it. Hutch. We will make sure.
Okay. Because I went out and I bought a bunch of his. But I love cardboard. I love cardboard. I see it sitting there behind you.
Oh, it's so great.
That ought to be. They ought to make that. You know, it's funny how Pixar movies suck now. It's like they ought to just be adapting his books. They'd make a great Pixar movie.
I don't know who it is. Somebody optioned cardboard.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so it's been sitting in pre-production for like 15 years.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And the same with Ghostopolis. Like it's been like at one point DreamWorks was supposed to make a Ghostopolis picture, and I don't know whatever happened to it. So I'm trying to think who it was that it wasn't DreamWorks directly. They were at one point they were in contract with, I can't remember who it was, some big name guy licensed it, an actor optioned it, but that hasn't
like
it never went.
DreamWorks Animation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Cardboard
but
seems like a natural. I mean, it just begs to be on the screen. It makes it so
really
good.
does.
Yeah,
It really does. In fact, if you could, if I was to pick how I want to see cardboard done, I would love to see it as like a what is his name, Selznick or whatever, the guy who was the director of Coraline, and and have it be a like a marionette stop motion gig, right?
Yeah.
And all of the cardboard structures were actually cardboard, right? That would be the most amazing way for that film to be a film.
That would look like early South Park almost.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Cutouts.
Yep. Well, it would be, you'd have 3D marionettes, so they'd actually have the characters.
Well, we should be talking about this next week. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
this is
probably.
conversation for next week.
Week's gear.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about gear, but is Doug Tennapel going to be joining us?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not
planned, but
I haven't asked him. But
okay. We can always talk about his stuff.
If I get the thumbnail made and advertised soon enough, sometimes he'll shoot me an email and be like, "You got room?" So we'll see. I haven't spoken to him since March, but that's cool.
I still think it's cool that we live in an age where you can just contact the creator of Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
Just say hi.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
All the internet.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, that's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Also, one last thing. Very last thing. We did talk about last week a little on stream that we're looking to rename the show. I'm kind of feeling monitor duty, but I'd like some opinions from the chat, from the comments. So let us know what you all think. And we will talk to you all later. Okay. Have a good week. Read some comics. Get out there. Get it. Go. Leave. Get out of here, guys. Got to hit the button, though.